A flat dairy paddock in southeastern South Australia ends at a fence line of red gum posts and a circular depression of dark water no wider than a farm dam. Beneath the reeds, a vertical opening drops through Oligocene limestone into more than 30 kilometres of flooded conduit and an aquifer holding hundreds of gigalitres of fresh water moving toward the Southern Ocean. It was bypassed for decades as an ordinary stock dam because the surface gives no sign of the volume beneath. How does a continent defined by surface aridity conceal vast, dynamic, hydraulic and geological systems directly under ordinary ground? Further down this survey lies a boundary pegged hundreds of meters out of position across desert sand and an ancient impact crater farmed for generations before anyone recognized the scar. We begin at number 30. Number 30. South of Mount Gambier, a cattle paddock contains a sinkhole known as the shaft. At the surface, the opening is barely a meter wide, once used to dump field stones. In 1973, divers entered the drop and discovered a cavern plunging 80 meters deep into a flooded labyrinth within the Gambier Karst province. Filtered through porous limestone, underwater visibility exceeds 40 meters. The Cave Divers Association of Australia and hydrogeologists have mapped extensive submerged conduits flowing beneath township streets and grazing land. The opening in the grass is a portal into a drowned province that has claimed explorers who lost their guidelines in the silt. Number 29. In the southern Gulf of Carpentaria, the South Wellesley Islands sit across shallow marine flats where tidal mechanics defy standard coastal patterns. At Mornington Island and Bentink Island, home to the Lardil and Kayardilt peoples for millennia, the diurnal tide produces only a single high and low cycle every 24 hours, moving across kilometers of mudflats within hours. During monsoons, storm surges push seawater over Chenier ridges into inland swales. Rather than fleeing, traditional stone fish traps across the intertidal zone harness this rhythmic drowning to corral marine life as the water retreats. Number 28. In the Northern Territory, 170 kilometers west of Alice Springs, a sandstone ring rises abruptly from the desert floor. Known as Goss's Bluff, and to Western Arrernte traditional owners as Tunarala, the circular range spans 5 kilometers across. It is the eroded central uplift of a massive meteorite impact. Geoscience Australia estimates an asteroid 1 kilometre wide struck the crust roughly 142 million years ago in the early Cretaceous. The original crater was over 20 kilometres wide, but subaerial weathering stripped the outer rim, exposing shattered core bedrock. The circular cliffs are the rebounding splash of the crust. Number 27. Follow the South Australia and Victoria border north from the coast toward the Murray River. Fixed by imperial statute along the 141st meridian of east longitude, colonial surveyors Henry Wade and Edward White marked the line through dense mallee between 1847 and 1850 using astronomical sightings. Their chains drifted westward, pegging the physical border 3.3 kilometers west of the true meridian. This left 1,300 square kilometers in legal dispute for over 60 years, until the High Court and Privy Council ruled in 1914 that the marked line on the ground superseded the meridian. Number 26. In far north Queensland, Mount Bellenden Kerr rises 1,593 metres straight out of sea level coastal plains. Cloaked in persistent orographic cloud, its summit averages over 8,000 millimetres of annual rain. In 2000, the Bureau of Meteorology recorded 12,461 millimetres at the summit gauge, while coastal foothills experienced standard tropical seasons. The peak functions as a cold cloud forest island above the wet tropics, preserving primitive Gondwanan flora unable to survive in the heat below. Number 25. Banded stilts nest on bare ground, yet their primary breeding grounds are ephemeral salt lakes across inland South Australia and Western Australia. For years, Kati Thandar Lake Eyre, Lake Torrens and Lake Gairdner remain dry salt crusts devoid of bird life. When monsoonal troughs flood the interior, dormant brine shrimp cysts hatch by the millions. Within days, tens of thousands of banded stilts fly thousands of kilometers from coastal estuaries across the desert to establish nesting colonies on temporary mud islands before the water evaporates back into salt. Number 24. In Western Australia's Kimberley, hundreds of sandstone towers in Purnululu National Park rise up to 250 meters above the savanna plain. The Bungle Bungle domes display horizontal bands of dark grey and bright orange. Laid down 360 million years ago in the Devonian, the sandstone fractured and weathered along joints. The dark bands are cyanobacteria colonies growing on permeable layers that retain moisture, while the orange bands mark dry, less permeable layers where iron oxide weathers at the surface. Gija and Kurunji peoples knew these formations for generations, yet they remained unrecorded in official state geological inventories until aerial filming in 1982. Number 23. In northwestern Queensland, the river channels of the Channel Country form an inland braided network across thousands of square kilometres. Rivers like the Diamantina and Georgina do not carve deep single channels. Across gradients dropping less than 20 centimetres per kilometre, the flow branches into hundreds of shallow waterways. During heavy monsoonal runoff, water moves as a sheet up to 40 kilometres wide across flat clay plains at walking pace. Outlying stations and towns like Birdsville become isolated islands for weeks from water that fell hundreds of kilometres upstream weeks earlier. Number 22. 60 kilometres off the New South Wales coast, the volcanic spire of Ball's Pyramid rises 562 metres out of the Tasman Sea. It is the erosional plug of an extinct shield volcano from 7 million years ago, possessing sheer basalt walls and almost no soil. Yet beneath a single Melaleuca shrub clinging to a ledge hundreds of metres above the waves, scientists in 2001 rediscovered the Lord Howe Island stick insect. Declared extinct after rats escaped the grounded ship Macambo in 1918, a relict population survived isolated on a bare ocean stack for over 80 years. Number 21. Along the Great Australian Bight, the Bunda Cliffs form an unbroken marine precipice stretching over 200 kilometres without an inlet. Rising between 60 and 120 metres, the cliffs expose the flat-lying strata of the Eucla Basin, capped by Eocene Wilson Bluff limestone deposited 40 million years ago when Australia rifted from Antarctica. Because no surface rivers cross the Nullarbor Plain, the cliff face is eroded solely by Southern Ocean swell, forming one of Earth's longest cliff lines and sealing a karstic plateau where rainfall drains instantly underground. Number 20. In the central arid zone, Cuddy Thander Lake air contains the lowest natural terrestrial point in Australia, 15.2 metres below sea level. Dry, it forms a crust of salt and gypsum over a metre thick across 9,500 square kilometres. The horizon appears entirely flat, giving no indication of sitting below sea level. The basin terminates an internal drainage network spanning 1.2 million square kilometres, 1/6 of the continent. Water entering this closed system cannot escape to the sea, either recharging deep artesian aquifers or evaporating into dry air. Number 19. Near Meckering in Western Australia's Wheatbelt, a magnitude 6.5 earthquake struck on the 14th of October 1968. Although situated far from tectonic plate boundaries, Australia's rapid northeastward drift creates severe horizontal compressive stress across the Archean cratonic crust. The 1968 rupture formed a fault scarp 37 kilometres long and up to 2.4 metres high, offsetting railway lines, roads and fences. It established that intraplate continental crust stores immense stress and can rupture across ground long assumed to be inert. What happens when those subterranean forces meet one of the continent's youngest volcanic fields? Number 18. In southwestern Victoria and southeastern South Australia, the Newer Volcanics Province spans 15,000 square kilometres across 400 eruption centres. Long considered extinct, radiometric dating of basalt and thermoluminescence dating of quartz beneath volcanic ash prove recent activity. At Mount Gambier, eruption craters like Blue Lake formed roughly 5,000 years ago. Gunditj Mara and Boandik oral histories record ground tremors, erupting fire, and shifting watercourses that match volcanic stratigraphy mapped by the Geological Survey of Victoria. The province remains dormant rather than extinct, fueled by intraplate mantle melting. Number 17. Mount Kosciuszko in New South Wales reaches 2,228 metres above sea level as Australia's highest summit. The rounded granite peak lacks the jagged arêtes or cirques of younger mountain chains. The summit block is an ancient erosional plateau uplifted in the Paleogene. Cosmogenic exposure dating of perched granite erratics and moraines by the Australian National University confirmed that during the last glacial maximum, permanent ice covered less than 50 square kilometres around the highest crests. It was shaped by periglacial frost weathering and deep time rather than massive glaciers. Number 16. Along Western Australia's south coast, pure white quartz sand dunes meet the Southern Ocean at Cape Legrand National Park. At Lucky Bay and Hellfire Bay, beach sand consists of rounded quartz weathered from Proterozoic granites over millions of years. When walked upon, uniform grain size and the absence of fine dust cause the grains to shear under pressure, producing a distinct acoustic squeak. The sound reflects extreme sediment maturity, generated because stable continental crust allowed sand grains to be sorted and abraded for epochs without destructive tectonic recycling. Number 15. Across inland Australia, pastoralists regarded dingoes as pests, leading colonial authorities to construct the dingo fence. Stretching over 5,600 kilometres from Queensland through Cameron Corner to the Nullarbor, it is the world's longest continuous barrier. University of New South Wales satellite monitoring shows a stark ecological boundary along the wire. South of the fence, dingo eradication triggered explosions in kangaroo and fox populations, causing overgrazing and small mammal declines. North of the fence, apex predators maintained lower herbivore densities, preserving native shrubs and dune geomorphology. Number 14. When a dried platypus specimen reached the British Museum in 1799, naturalists like George Shaw inspected the pelt with scissors, suspecting a taxidermic hoax. Decades of anatomical research in eastern Australian rivers confirmed the animal lays eggs, lactates through specialised skin pores, and uses bill electroreceptors to detect electrical impulses from benthic prey and river mud. Monotremes diverged over 160 million years ago, preserving primitive reproductive anatomy while evolving specialised sensory systems in geographic isolation. Number 13. Within South Australia's Woomera prohibited area, the Maralinga testing range holds contamination from British nuclear testing between 1956 and 1963. Alongside major atomic detonations, the Vixen B safety trials scattered 22 kilograms of plutonium-239 using conventional explosives. The 1985 Royal Commission into British nuclear tests in Australia and in situ gamma spectrometry mapped the contamination, initiating a massive remediation program in the late 1990s where thousands of tons of topsoil were excavated and buried in deep engineered trenches. What hidden industrial decisions transformed ancient landscapes into artificial terrains? Number 12. Across Western Australia's wheatbelt and parts of the Murray-Darling Basin, land clearing triggered extensive dryland salinity. Clearing deep-rooted native woodlands for shallow-rooted annual crops increased groundwater recharge. Ancient marine salt stored in subsoils rose with water tables at rates of centimetres per year. CSIRO and state agencies monitor millions of hectares where saline water has reached root zones, scalding fertile paddocks into barren salt pans and corroding infrastructure foundations from beneath. Number 11. The Murray-Darling Basin drains over 1 million square kilometres across 4 states and 1 territory, providing the nation's primary agricultural water supply. Crossing flat, semi-arid plains with high evaporation and variable flows, excessive irrigation extraction leaves river reaches vulnerable to collapse during drought. In the summers of 2018 and 2019, hypoxic blackwater and temperature stratification near Menindee on the Darling River caused the death of millions of native fish. State monitoring confirmed that during prolonged low flows, isolated pools exhaust dissolved oxygen when upstream extractions sever continuous flow. Number 10. In the Hamersley Range of Western Australia, the mining settlement of Wittenoom produced over 3 million tonnes of crucidolite, or blue asbestos, between 1943 and 1966. Tailings were distributed throughout the town site for road base, playgrounds, and gardens. Because fine asbestos fibres resist weathering and remain airborne in dry air, remediation proved unfeasible across the gorges. In 2007, the state government de-gazetted the town and removed it from official maps and highway signage, followed by the 2022 Wittenoom Closure Act to compulsorily acquire all property and permanently ban habitation. Number 9. At Cameron Corner, where the borders of New South Wales, Queensland and South Australia intersect, state boundaries follow astronomical lines surveyed in the 19th century. New South Wales follows the 29th parallel, surveyed between 1879 and 1881 by John Cameron and William Barron. Because New South Wales and South Australia observe daylight saving time, while Queensland does not, and South Australia operates on Central Standard Time, stepping around the corner survey post in summer crosses 3 time zones within metres. Number 8. In South Australia, Olympic Dam lies beneath hundreds of metres of unmineralised sedimentary cover on the Stuart Shelf, completely invisible from the surface. In 1975, Western Mining Corporation geologists targeted the site by combining continental gravity and aeromagnetic anomaly mapping with tectonic models. Exploration drill hole RD1 intersected high-grade copper and uranium at a depth of over 350 metres, uncovering one of Earth's largest mineral deposits beneath barren cover rock. Number 7. On the edge of the Great Sandy Desert in Western Australia, Wolf Creek Crater, known to Jaru traditional owners as Kandamalal, spans 880 metres wide. Its rim rises 35 metres above the sandplains, with a floor dropping 50 metres below the crest. Spotted during aerial surveys in 1947, geological analysis confirmed impact-shocked quartz and iron-nickel shale balls from an iron meteorite that struck the sandstone approximately 120,000 years ago. What structural shifts occur when the entire continent begins moving beneath the cartographer's pen? Number 6. Across the Pilbara seabed at Cape Breguiers in the Dampier Archipelago, archaeologists from Flinders University and the University of Western Australia confirmed the nation's first submerged Aboriginal archaeological site in 2020. Using multi-beam sonar, sub-bottom profiling, and diving surveys, researchers mapped stone tools resting on the sea floor beneath 2.4 meters of water. The artifacts were deposited when lower sea levels during the last glacial period left the Sahul Shelf as dry land connecting Australia to New Guinea. Number 5. In Western Victoria, the Budgebim aquaculture system spans volcanic basalt flows from the Mount Eccles eruption 37,000 years ago. Gunditj Mara traditional owners modified the lava channels to build stone weirs and holding ponds to farm short-finned eels. Radiocarbon dating of channel sediments confirms aquaculture construction dating back over 6,600 years. When bushfires cleared thick canopy in 2020, aerial LiDAR mapping revealed previously unrecorded stone channels across kilometres of terrain. Number 4. Beneath the dunes of the Willandra Lakes in southwestern New South Wales, human burials at Lake Mungo emerged as prevailing winds eroded ancient lunettes. In 1968 and 1974, researchers identified the cremated remains of Mungo Lady and the ochre burial of Mungo Man. Luminescence and uranium series dating established ages of 40 to 42,000 years, documenting some of the world's oldest ritual burials within a lake system that dried out during the terminal Pleistocene. Number 3. Sandy Island appeared on hydrographic and civilian maps in the Coral Sea for over a century after being reported by the whaling ship Velocity in 1876. In 2012, scientists aboard the research vessel RV Southern Surveyor surveyed the coordinates with multi-beam bathymetry, recording ocean depths exceeding 1,400 meters with no land present. The Phantom Island had persisted across global databases because maritime authorities had never physically resurveyed the location. Number 2. The Great Artesian Basin spans 1.7 million square kilometers across 4 states and territories, storing 64,900 cubic kilometers of groundwater. Formed in Jurassic and Cretaceous sandstones beneath impermeable shale, this fossil water recharged over millions of years along the Great Dividing Range. Since the first pastoral bore was sunk near Burke in 1878, thousands of free-flowing bores caused severe pressure declines, prompting major government bore capping programs to prevent permanent aquifer depressurization. Number 1. Australia drifts northeastward at roughly 7 centimeters per year, among the fastest tectonic rates on Earth. Over decades, this lateral motion created discrepancies between static map coordinates and satellite navigation. In 2017, Geoscience Australia introduced the Geocentric Datum of Australia 2020, shifting official coordinates 1.8 meters northeast to bring national maps back into alignment with satellite positioning. What kept these phenomena unnoticed was never an absence of evidence, but the assumption that an ancient continent is static, dry, and settled. LiDAR and bathymetric surveys continue to reveal submerged coastlines and buried structures faster than they can be mapped, while deep records face erosion before their extent is understood. The map looks complete, yet the ground beneath it remains in constant motion. Which anomaly in your own state or territory has always seemed out of place? Or which of these 30 locations surprised you most? Share your observations in the comments below and subscribe for more deep documentary investigations into the forgotten geography of this continent.